in terms of the entertainment industry at the minute, there are certain ruction points going on. I think there are a lot of, consumer habits have changed with like following like the pandemic and stuff as well. There's lots of big challenges that these companies are kind of broaching. And like you mentioned there, the actual cost of involved in making these experiences and like the first party PlayStation games. And we're talking about games being developed, or games that started entering development like 2 years ago, already being made with the next generation of consoles in mind, which is just wild. I mean, I always use the Rockstar Games as example here, where it's like between 2007 and 2013, like we got like 5 games from Rockstar. There was like GTA 4, there was like
bit of the old table tennis in there.
Yeah, Red Dead Redemption, GTA 5, table tennis was like 2006 or something.
Max Payne 3.
Max Payne 3, and then you go between 2013 and 2023. And you get, we re-released GTA 5.
Yeah.
We had Red Dead Redemption 2, and we re-released GTA 5. And we have
a lot of GTA Online stuff.
A lot of GTA Online stuff. And I think that in itself is like, talk about studio priorities. Like, obviously they put a lot into GTA Online, but at the same time, Red Dead Redemption 2 was such a massive undertaking. And it gave us a masterpiece. Like, it's my favorite game of all time. I think it's the greatest game ever made. But where are we in terms of like, do we want one masterpiece every 6 years? Does that justify the entry point of paying like 500 quid for a PlayStation 5? Or do we want things to kind of be like how they were in the late 2000s, where you were getting more regular AAA and AA experiences with dev cycles that tended to be between more like 3 or 4 years as opposed to 6 to 10?
And that idea of what is an upper echelon game has obviously massively changed per generation. But like, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, how do you justify the console price the console price or the amount of different costs that go into it if you don't have the big shiny old bells or whistles thing? Because this generation has had very few of them. Like, I keep mentioning Baldur's Gate because that was one of the only times this year where I was like, okay, this feels like an absolute ton of work has gone into it and it's all being pulled off. But at the same time, that is such an anomaly because of how much money the owner, creator, whatever it was, of Larian has put in from his own personal funds to get it over the finish line. And the original version of that game from a few years ago wasn't like a bad game or anything, but it was demonstrably not as complete as this is. So it's kind of been in this weird sort of early access state for a while, and this year it's like the proper version of it.
And it's interesting as well. Baldur's Gate's a really good example because, like, you mentioned Dune as well. Like, obviously we've just been through the pandemic and everything like that, and you can almost hear the conversations in boardrooms of people saying, how do we get our funds back up after losing so much? I know nostalgia, that does really well. It's got to start remaking games. And Baldur's Gate's really interesting because it really harkens back to a classic era of gaming when you had stuff like, the original Baldur's Gate games, the Neverwinter Nights, and stuff like that. Even the original kind of Fallout games with those top-down view, like tactical kind, and that is doing something where it's taking the classic kind of spirit of those games and why we loved them so much back then, but modernizing it in such an interesting way, and then utilizing kind of the hardware and everything like that to really allow you just to do whatever the hell you want. And it's such a unique example of that and how it's done right, which is one of thousands of reasons why I absolutely adore Larian and that game. That's a perfect example for me of how you honor something classic, do something new with it now, and just make a bloody good game.
I think what's fascinating with that though, like as well, is that it was an 8-year dev cycle, I think. And you mentioned Ewan about like the idea of something goes into production. So if something went into production right now, it wouldn't come out on this generation of consoles.
You could be looking at the next decade.
Yeah, like it was. I think it was Jason Schreier on Bloomberg was saying that most dev cycles they aim for about an 8 to 10 year window. So it's like that's nuts. Like if we started making a video right now, we can't put it out for another 10 years or whatever. Trying to factor in market trends and things like that, or things that are gonna get your game across to whatever the industry looks like in 10 years.
And that's how you get stuff like Suicide Squad, Killer Justice League.
Totally,
you're coming, like, obviously it's not games as a service, it is a co-op game, but aesthetically, gameplay wise, that thing feels like it's been made in the image of Fortnite. Like, you've got everyone bouncing around and stuff, and it's got that irreverent like sense of humor and stuff like that. So you're totally right. Like everything is a huge, like every business decision is a gamble. Like, when we are pitching a video, we need to weigh up the costs and negatives. Like, do you think people are actually going to watch this and all that sort of thing? Are we going to get any other value from it? The sums of money involved here, we think of like film and TV as being in dire straits at the minute in terms of like committing to movies that end up like not resonating at the box office. But even then, even with like the huge like stars that are involved and stuff, the production costs versus like the amount of time sunk into it is still way less than what's on the games at the minute.
One thing as well is like that idea of like, would the average consumer, would the average gamer, whoever it is, be content with a smaller project from a Rockstar, from a Naughty Dog or whatever? I would like to think yes, because I still think that you can still get a level of graphical quality that would still bring them in.
That's the interesting thing, because you guys have been playing AC Mirage, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you feel like do you feel like that's a full meal? Are you eating well? Is this
I personally think so, but I don't know if you're as positive on me, Strawn, as I am.
I mean, I'm not as far through. I'm kind of like in the beginning area, but for me, from what I've played so far, like I adore it because it's taken me back to what I love about the series. So like, although that, the latest trilogy in many ways is fantastic, like, really, really great, solid trilogy. And it's really kind of, I mean, those just blew up and became these huge things. But I love, for me personally, just this streamlined version of what I love about the series and taking me back to those roots. And that's why I adore it. I think we were talking about it earlier, where pulling me into the story straight away, I'm already in, because it's a lot more condensed. It's about one isolated moment, and then the repercussions of that means so much more, as opposed to like wars that are going on, these big battles, everything's happening around you. Right? It's such a big event. I love these isolated little stories, which has then taken us further and in a more organic way, and then focusing into the Creed and everything like that. It makes more sense.
For that franchise in particular, it felt like this was necessary. Like the thing is, like this is literally a glorified DLC. It started as DLC for Valhalla. They put a bit more dev time into it. And it's being, I bought it for £45 or £40. It was one of the two, but it's not a full price AAA 70
25 quid cheaper than most of the AAA games.
But I literally, as I was playing through it, because it literally is Assassin's Creed 1, but with all of the various gameplay improvements they've made over the years. Like it has the crouch button from AC Syndicate, or it has like some of the more set piece kills from Unity, or
Assassin's discovered their knees.
Yeah, exactly. There's little things that like over the course of Assassin's Creed, we've all sort of like, played those games and gone, oh, I wish that was in before they deviated too much tonally or whatever it is. So this one is a return to form, or a return to the original, but with all the various gameplay improvements that we always wanted in there. It reminds me of when Activision brought back the Tony Hawk's games, but they put in the moves from Tony Hawk's 2 and 3 back into the levels from 1, so you could do manuals and things like that. And so I think it plays really, really well. But overall, when I was playing it, I did think to myself, this is all it needs to be. Like, it's not trying to take advantage of my time. It's not bloating the runtime with 50 collectibles that I don't need. There are 10 optional collectibles, and they give you cool weapons if you find them.
Does it take 24 hours to get good? Which several reviews and Odyssey and Valhalla will, it gets good after like 18 hours, mate. I'm like, I don't have 18 hours.
Way too many games that feel like jobs, that just feel like meaningless busy work, things like that. And I get that over time they can be rewarding in themselves. You can get Pavlovian responses to collecting stuff, to building things. The farming genre has blown the F up because of those various interconnected, gameplay loops.
The priorities just seem really weird at the minute. And I think like we are having these conversations right now. Like we want smaller stuff. We want to have more in general. But clearly the live service stuff is still making in lots of money. Like the new EA Sports game is going to continue to make lots of money because it's always the most popular thing on the planet. We're going to see more from Call of Duty. I don't think people are going to get sick of that. People are going to pay for the glorified DLC that is Modern Warfare 3. These are all things. So, like, I think there are certain movements coming. It's all about weighing up whether or not the general audience is as attuned to these conversations, which I think maybe from evidence this year they are.
Yes.
Versus how many people does it take to make that change actually a reality?
But yeah, I think overall, obviously we haven't talked that much about the positives. We might do a follow-up podcast for this and talk about the best games of the generation or something so far. For now, this has been the What Culture Gaming Podcast. I've been your host, Scott Tilford, joined by Adam Strawn.
Goodbye, everyone.
Joined by you, Patterson.
Adios.
From Three Amigos, and we'll catch you soon. Goodbye.